basically, fasting is a way to upregulate your cell detox pathway. 24-hour fast that actually helps you to reset your gut microbiome. Women and men cannot be fasting the same way. But anything good, if done too much, then that can take you into a stress mode. Food is not just food, it's actually an emotion for a lot of people. Your gut health is everything. We are so used to feeding on carbs all the time, we only know how to use glucose for our energy.
Fitness coach, animal movement master instructor, vascular sinologist, and the co founder of Sweaty Ninjas. Our guest today on the Settle or Be Better podcast is Swetha Devaraj, who's going to be talking to us about fasting, training, and a lot more. So, welcome, Shwetha, and over to you. Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your personal health and wellness story and how has it been for you so far?
Thank you so much for having me and being so accommodating with the timings and stuff. And thank you so much for that intro. Very nice to hear that. Very humble. Um, uh, so my name is Swetha Devaraj. By Insta, I go by Sweti Shwetha. I did begin my journey as a professional tennis player growing up. So my relationship to fitness goes way back, and get recruited to play tennis in the US for a university. So that kind of continued, and the journey just went to different platforms, if I can say. And long story short, once I got back to India, I did work as a vascular sonologist or a radiologist at a hospital in Bangalore. At the same time, I used to work, do a part-time job at a CrossFit gym close to the hospital because I felt like I had a lot of time. 9 to 5 was my job, but before 9 o'clock and after 5 o'clock, I just felt like I had a lot of time in hand. And I thought, okay, I can do like a part-time job at the gym since I already know. I've been very fortunate to have mentors all my life, whether it was tennis or marathon racing or even CrossFit. So whatever I've learned from, and I've learned from some amazing people all over the world, and whatever I've learned from them, I thought, I could just use it to help somebody who, is looking for strength. So it was easy for me to join the gym and just learn the methods of, teaching and coaching. Although, I come from a sports background and I used to coach tennis a lot, uh, being in a gym setting is very different. I know most people think, oh, she's in this, she's an athlete, or people who are athletes come easy. Maybe a little bit of it, or maybe, coming from a medical background as well, I did have an upper hand or had it easier to understand it. But then, when you go into that scenario, I feel like it's harder or there's a lot more to learn. So that was a good experience, coaching in a gym. And then, also started doing online training because a lot of people were asking me on Instagram. Insta was pretty new at the time, and a lot of people wanted to know a lot of things, and it was easy to get into the online platform from there. So after that, I did start a company called Sweaty Ninjas with Devrat, which is my business partner now. And I quit my hospital job in 2018 to travel the world for a few years, and now all I do is coach people, train people online, and also take animal flow workshops for those who want to be certified, trainers who want to be certified to coach or teach animal flow. I travel around India and outside India and take the workshops, and I've just been really enjoying the entire process of this whole transition from an athlete to a coach to at the same time having multiple jobs at the hospital to now just having my own company and educating trainers all over. It's been a good ride.
Amazing. That was a really inspiring story. And in fact, I was just reading up about your article that's on your profile, and it was so interesting that you put it in a way that even while, having a doctor's job, you felt like you had that much time on your hand, and then you really wanted to invest it in fitness, because that's not something we get to hear very often. And in fact, even anybody who's doing a 9 to 5, or, whatever hours, anybody who's doing a full time job, the first thing that comes to their mind is, I don't have the time, to invest in my health and work on it. So that's really interesting how you put it, and juggling between three different jobs and still finding the time to do it. Because I've also been a personal trainer, and just doing one freelance job as a personal trainer and taking multiple trainings in a day can also be
Mm-hmm.
exhausting for for you to go and do your own training. So that's also something that happens. But seeing you, it's really inspiring, and you're really leading by example, that if you want to, you'd really do it, and you'd really invest that time and money in yourself and your health. So
Thank
that
you
was
so
really
much.
inspiring.
I think it has everything to do with the kind of upbringing I've had, to be honest. And I mean, I was into sports, and from a young age, I'm very used to waking up at 4 o'clock and just, and then playing tennis, going up, and then going to school, and then leave school early, and then go to play tennis again until 8 o'clock, and then come home, do your homework and stuff, and then just go to bed. So I was so used to that. And then remember I said, I was recruited to play tennis in the university in the US as well. So that just continued. The entire format continued. And even in the US, it was juggling between playing the sport for the university, and then at the same time, you really need to maintain a good grade. Otherwise, you don't have. I went on a scholarship. And so if you don't maintain that grade, and play well, you don't get the scholarship anymore. So, I really had to make sure I do all of it. So I was so used to it. So when I came back to India, I felt like everything was easier. So I just needed to feel like, my day is productive, or, I just needed to work all the time. I'm a workaholic at the same time. So yeah, that's what it was. It's the upbringing, or how the childhood days were. And I think that's why I always tell any of my friends who have kids, put them into sports. Like, the discipline that comes with sport is way different than, anything else.
Absolutely. And also, there is a certain love for movement, and this kind of an active lifestyle that is created during all those years. Because versus if you don't do, you're not that active, or you're not into sports, or you don't have that fit mindset, and then you're trying to do that after 25, that's something really difficult to work on with all these other responsibilities, and then to
Yeah.
begin. So that's really interesting. And also, like, you talk about your transition, right, from a coach to athlete, to now an entrepreneur and training other trainers. How has your
Yeah.
nutrition changed in all those years? And what has has there been a major change, or what are the new learnings that you have been incorporating from these transitions?
Nutrition is so tricky, and it's so amazing at the same time. And it has changed. Every few years, it has changed. I come from a meat eating family, so I never ate any vegetables as such, So, but then, growing up as a kid, I remember my coach and my mom saying eat a lot of vegetables, but I never did. But then, I was young, also into sports, so somehow Zika was really well. And I also come from a family that are like really tough people. So I can connect to that, but then age made a huge difference. And then cut back to, or fast forward to living in the US. The food was very different there. And I remember, obviously getting into college, or like, as you go older, you attend parties, and then alcohol happens, and then you also eat junk, and then you start to see, sugar, all of these things. And then started to see how my body was changing at the same time. So how the body was responding to the same things when I was a teenager was not the same when I was in my 20s. So that's when I first realized, I can't eat the same way anymore. I need to, like, change the way I work out. I need to change the way I eat. So the experimenting with nutrition started probably when I was like 21, or maybe even 19. When I started getting into my 20s, early 20s, I started experimenting a lot with like calories and going to the restaurants and looking at how much calories does this food have and that food have, how much do I need, all of those things. And it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating to sit there and calculate and weigh your food and all of that stuff. And then fast forward into my 30s, when partially I was in India and in the US as well. Uh, I went back and forth from uh, veganism to keto to paleo, all these things. That was also coming into becoming popular. So I've always been a big experimenter. So I always want to see what it feels like. And then, but one thing was that I brought back a lot of vegetables. I wasn't just eating meat anymore, but I brought back a lot of vegetables, and that started to make a good difference. And then again, fast forwarding to late 30s, I'm really old, if you can tell. I'm going to go to like 40s. No, I'm just kidding. I'm only 38. But somewhere in my 30s, I realized I had some sort of autoimmune conditions happening, had some sort of health issues as well. And that's when I first got into veganism. Again, as an experiment, like to see what happens to my body. And of course, for the planet. And I did watch a lot of documentaries, and for animals, all of that stuff. And then, I learned so much about your carbon footprint and how it matters and how you need to, like, do things in moderation. I remember even selling my car and just walking and using cycle for the, sake of the planet and stuff like that. So that's when I experimented with veganism, and I was a vegan for like almost 6 years or so. And then fast forwarding to that, that was an amazing experience again. Like, I really loved uh, being a vegan and practicing veganism. Then again, fast forwarding a little bit more, my body, that's why in the beginning I mentioned I come from a meat eating family. And for me to go cold turkey like that, just from, next day, it's just like no meat at all and no dairy at all and just like all veganism. I don't think my body took it well. Not saying veganism is bad. Anything, any new thing that we want to get into, this is all my learnings and this is all my personal experience. Uh, though it was amazing and it made me feel good and I performed really well as an athlete and all of that stuff, somewhere the body, instead of easing into it, I went into shocking the body. So somewhere something else didn't fit in, and then I had another autoimmune condition, which uh, made me pre-diabetic and something else. Also, my doctors have been trying to figure it out, isn't it? Which is not very or anything like that, but it's just that I have to make some other changes. So now what I do is I eat fish and eggs and then a lot of vegetables. I still eat a lot of plant-based foods, but then I had to bring back those things to control my blood sugar a little bit, and that has helped me. I don't think I'll ever go back to like eating chicken or mutton or beef and things like that. But then, this is again, like I said, I've always been experimenting and I've always been a fan of everything that I've tried. Uh, but then, my main goal, of course, is always to think about the planet and the animals and just do anything that I can in moderation so that I can still contribute towards all these good things. So yeah, the nutrition part of all of it have been just really incredible, and I've seen changes every few years, and I know it's going to evolve more and more, and I probably will experiment a lot more.
Absolutely, like that was so detailed and so many major transitions over the years, and it's also a lot more intuitive, right? Like at what phase of life you are, also what work you're doing, and how is your activity level like, and how your body's reacting to it, and that often gets
Yeah.
left behind. That at times people, if there's a new or a particular way of eating that we find is working for our body right now, at times we do. Happen to continue it for the longest time, and without having to check with our body if it is still working the same way, or if it is still giving us the same results, or is there something that needs to be changed. So that's a really great insight to always check and look back and always see if it's really working for you right now, and if
Yes.
there are some changes you need to make. And of course, get help, because if you don't know much about it, research and get help, because
Yes.
you might not always make the right decisions that way. But that was really
Yes.
interesting. And coming to
Thank
fasting,
you.
our topic for today, what compelled you to start fasting, and what was it particularly about that made you or was it like always in your routine, or is this something that you've recently started adding, and how has it been so far?
This was probably in 2017 that I had some sort of health issues, and that's when I came across fasting. In fact, it was my business partner Devat who told me, there's something. Because I was trying to figure out, like, I didn't know what was happening to my body. And being a high performance athlete and always very active, I've always been very lean and very athletic. And suddenly I was putting on weight, like, and I didn't know, how to bring that to control. And of course, women, we change so much. Our hormones change so much up and down, right? So our bodies are constantly changing and we need to understand what happens. But I was very, very confused and I couldn't figure out why that was happening, obviously. So my business partner, Devrat, is the one who told me about intermittent fasting. And that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I had no clue about what fasting does, none of that. My whole goal was to just like, you know what? I don't know where this weight is happening right now. Like, I want to get rid of all this weight that I have on my body. So let me do anything to or try or experiment with anything that can get rid of this weight. So I started fasting and it was amazing. It was such a good feeling. And of course, the weight loss was really good. But then that also got me very, very curious about, what is this fasting? Like, what is the hype about fasting? Or why is this? I'm a curious person. And also, I come from a medical background. So for me, it was to dig deeper and find out what else does, what is all this new feeling that I have? Let me find out, so that's what led me to start fasting, and everything that I've found out after that has been just truly amazing, and I'm very excited to share all of it.
Amazing. And so, ever since you got introduced to fasting, uh, a lot of people are aware of intermittent fasting in India, and the major reason being to lose weight.
Yeah.
So there are a lot more other benefits of fasting, and there's so much more to dive into when it comes to fasting. But often, what the highlight is to lose weight. So if we could
Yeah.
just talk about after, also that was also your goal in the beginning, but how, after you started it, what was it that you realized started changing in your biology, apart from losing weight, and what was something that
Yeah.
you observed, that you invited into your life and your body after you incorporated fasting?
Yeah. So basically, fasting is a way to upregulate your cell's detox pathway. Obviously, not a lot of us think about it in that way, but then, there's a lot happening inside your cell depending on the kind of fasting you're doing. And of course, fasting has been in India for such a long time now for spiritual reasons. It's also a way of giving your body rest from constant eating. You know, we, of course, there's also, studies saying you got to eat like 6 times a day or more number of times, or eat your 3 meals and then, of course, your snacks. Constantly eating and not actually giving rest to your digestive system and, of course, the rest of your body. You're feeding your system constantly from that stomach things that happen, and it goes to like different organs and different pathways or mechanisms are, so many religions, whether we Hindus or Christians or Muslims in India, we all have that fasting period. And I know my mom fasts a certain day. That is also from the time when there were, all these sadhus or rishis who used to sit for meditation, and they wanted to disconnect from something that everybody's our bodies depend so much on. Food is not just food; it's actually an emotion for a lot of people. You connect to with people like that. You connect to certain instances, relationships, all of these things. You enjoy social situations through food. So we don't know as humans how attached we are to food. So that becomes a spiritual, side of it, where you disconnect from something that you're actually so attached to. That is one way of fasting. And next one for me, this is my favorite, is about the discipline part. I know I'm a big foodie and I really like eating as well and trying and different kinds of foods. And if there is no discipline, I can eat at any time of the day or night. But then when I'm fasting, I have discipline. I know I can't eat after a certain period of time and I will not touch that. And I know that actually works really well for my body and my mind. So it just, and then everything from there is a domino effect. So the discipline part of it is really lovely. Now, to talk about what happens when you fast other than weight loss. Weight loss is just a side effect. Weight loss is also again goal dependent. If your goal is to lose weight, then you got to do certain things along with fasting. There are a lot of people who fast and still put on weight, or some people fast and they're like, I don't see any difference. They might not be doing it right. There's a lot of small details that everyone needs to pay attention to. Otherwise, you're not going to have weight loss at all, or anything that you think of. So many of our clients, or so many people on Instagram as well. These days, I don't talk too much about fasting because on social media, because I know if I start talking, people will start doing it without paying attention to the smaller details or easing into it. Then they feel like fasting is not for them. Every single person, whether you want to put on weight or gain weight, you want to gain weight or lose weight, or you want to observe some sort of health benefit, you got to ease into it. You got to pay attention to the details, and everybody can do or perform or practice fasting. Now, the benefits other than weight loss is something called autophagy. Autophagy is your body getting rid of damaged cells and actually giving birth to newer cells. Regeneration of new cells is what's going to happen through fasting, and you have to go through at least 15 to 17 hours of fasting for that. Of course, you can also perform 13 to 15 hours, and you can still get like growth hormones, increase in energy. A little bit of fat burning also happens between like 13 to 15. But anything 16 to 17, you start to observe cellular changes, your mitochondrial energy. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of your cell, and the way you get energy is through mitochondria as well. But then if the damage is happening at the mitochondrial level, then everybody needs to kind of get rid of those damaged cells. And this can happen through autophagy. That happens from fasting. Now, blood sugar regulation. A lot of people have blood sugar problems, right? So with fasting, you can regulate your blood sugar levels, or you can control your insulin being resistant and all of that stuff. And it also controls or reduces hunger hormone called the leptin. Now, and then this is again my personal favorite. It helps to improve your gut microbiome. You're giving break to your system, your digestive system. So the gut microbiome getting better is a big plus, because your gut health is everything. Your gut is related, or it's connected to the brain. It's connected to the entire body. So when you actually give rest to your digestive system, you're also allowing the gut bacteria to kind of renew themselves. So that just opens up a lot of other pathways, and indirectly it also leads to reduced blood pressure. So a lot of things actually happen from fasting, and not just weight loss, right? Like I've already said so many things. And another main one is your body also goes through some detoxification. When your body, when we're giving a lot of carb, any food, anything that we ingest into our bodies, whether it's protein or carbs, ultimately does become glucose. So your body is sort of used to tapping into glucose for energy. Now, when you start fasting, after 12 hours, the body has absorbed all the nutrients from food. It starts tapping into your fat reserves. Then what happens is that your liver starts to produce something called ketones. And these ketones actually produce something called beta hydroxybutyrate. This stimulates something called BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. And that is actually responsible for your memory, learning, logical part of the brain, all of these things. And that's why fasting is also very helpful to improve your brain function. Now, with the detoxification, along with tapping into the fat storage, when the body starts to do that, it also tries to get rid of some toxins that are built up. There's so much toxins in our environment now, from the soil pollution, from air pollution, all of that stuff, right? And then through food as well, we accumulate all of these things inside our bodies, which is also why a lot of people, if you're having, in the beginning, I've seen so many of our clients saying when they start fasting, I have a headache, or there's hair loss, or like, there's this and that and all of that stuff, bloating. That's because there's some sort of toxins inside their bodies that's blocking the channels from getting it excreted from the body. So that's when you need to address. This gives us information. It doesn't mean that fasting is not for that person. You just have to dig a little deeper and see what else. What's the root cause of this? We figured out why this might be happening. Let's fix this part. So it also allows you to see what is the underlying issue. Uh, it also opens up dopamine pathway. Like if you do, or if you fast for more than 24 hours, or 24-hour fast, that actually helps you to reset your gut microbiome, and we already talked about it. If you go beyond 24 hours, let's say 36 hours, a little bit more fat burning, like intense fat burning happens. Of course, 36 hours is a lot of number of hours to go without food, and it takes a lot of practice to do that. Beyond that, 48 hours, um, something happens which resets your dopamine receptor sites. And dopamine is called the hormone of motivation and drive. So a lot of people start to get that uh, drive when they start fasting. Especially when I do my 24 hours, for the next 2 days, even with 24 hours, you sort of feel the dopamine rush. Kind of like how you experience it when you do cold showers. Cold showers actually increase your dopamine levels also, and or ice bath and all of these things. I think you do it as well. And the 48-hour fast actually help with that, and you start to feel that drive and motivation, and it also increases the blood flow towards your prefrontal cortex, which helps you to make like logical decisions and all of these things. Now, beyond that, if you want to fast, there's also 72 hours, which helps you to reboot your immune system. And of course, there's more. There's a lot of different fasting, and a lot of people do like 5 days fast, water fast, and keto fast, and dry fasting, and all of these things. But of course, all these have to be done with somebody's help, some professional's help, or somebody who has the experience for it. I'm just giving or putting in all the information that these are different things that may happen with different number of hours, and the things that the benefits that we observe other than just weight loss. I already spoke about the cognitive benefits, and the kind of alertness I have when I observe fasting. It's just really incredible, and you never feel like you're low in energy. And yeah, I think these are some of the things. And apart from losing weight, everything that I've mentioned, I think that's plenty.
That
Yeah,
was
we
quite
can
an
continue.
interesting bit on fasting, and very detailed, definitely, and especially the last point that you spoke about, that is the alertness and the energy that you have. It's quite contrary to
Yeah,
what people might think about fasting, or they might have done it once or twice sometime, and they feel like, I cannot think, I've not eaten, or I cannot really do go for my meeting because I've not eaten. That's what the usual
yeah,
misconception is. If somebody has not
yeah,
researched more about it, or practice in the right way. So that's actually a really
yeah,
interesting point to think about, and all of these other aspects of it, apart from weight loss, the benefit of weight loss. So thank you for sharing that. That was really detailed, and I'm sure this gives a lot of insight for our audience listening to this. Now, coming in terms of your training,
No
how
worries.
has this impacted your training? Like, how did it complement it, and how did you cycle your trainings and your fasts, to make it easier for you to adapt to it?
Right. So it's all about how you ease into it. So for somebody who's new to it, I wouldn't recommend starting with like 16 hours, So we don't know how frequently we eat, or we don't realize how frequently we eat. So I would say start with like 12 to 13 hours. And then once you start feeling comfortable, like, 3, 4 days later, you're going to start feeling comfortable with it, and then just increase it by another hour. And then again, once you're comfortable with the 14 hours, then increase it by another hour, and then go till like, 16 hours. And then you got to practice that for a while. So I kind of did that for a long time. And I would even change the way I worked out. If I'm doing like a 16 hours fasting, I timed my workouts. I would either eat early dinner, because I usually wake up very early and I go for my run, and I used to be very hungry right after my run. So I used to eat early dinner, and that would help me, okay, come back from my run and then just start eating right after if I finished my 16 hours. As I got used to that, I pushed my workouts a little bit more, and then I would also push with like longer fasts. It didn't matter what time. I mean, I always eat early dinner because I also really believe in the circadian rhythm and how our, biology, our human body, the biology is synced with the circadian rhythm. And so even if I eat late dinner, the next day it is not easy. It is not hard for me to go 16 to 18 hours workout and then still wait to eat, because I've just eased into it. I've given myself like years to get used to that. However, I wouldn't say that to anybody who's new. You got to see, you got to be intuitive about this. And I like the way you said it in the beginning, eating intuitively. And then once you get used to it, sometimes I do my 24 hours and I actually keep my workout. I would have ran in the morning and I do another workout, just before my 24 hours are up, and I'm fine. Like the energy that happens, especially after those 20 hours, is incredible. But this, none of this can happen if you uh, jump the gun or like start doing 16 hours and 24 hours. You've got to give yourself time. And I remember the first time I did 24 hours, I was very hangry. Like I
Thinking
couldn't
about
even
food.
go, thinking about food and energy, and just like, really moody, because like I said, remember, food is emotion, and it's your hormones depend on it, your whole body depends on it. We're so used to it. And then when you don't give your body certain things, you don't know what's happening. So I remember the first time I did 24 hours, I was very, very hungry and angry and very moody. That's when I realized, okay, it really matters what I eat. So yeah, the 24-hour fast is not easy, and then you got to just ease into it. You got to change the way you work out in the beginning, and once you get used to it, then you can experiment with whatever you can. But then that being said, it's also very tricky to fast for uh, too many number of days or consecutively, because we also need to understand that things that stress your body can actually take you into a defense mechanism where your body starts to produce fat cells. Exercise is good, but it's a stressor. There are good stressors and there are also bad stressors. But anything good, if done too much, then that can take you into a stress mode. If you exercise too much, you're stressing your body. If you do exercise too much and not eat well to give yourself enough fuel, you're stressing your body. If you're doing cold shower every single day and stressing your body beyond the level that it can take, you're stressing your body. If you fast too much and not feed yourself well with the proper ingredients in the eating window, you're stressing your body. So when people fast, I've seen this all the time. People fast too many times, and too many different types of fast, and then they are wondering what's happening to their body. That's because there's a lot of inflammation in the body now because of a lot of stress. You're exercising, you're doing this, and you're doing that, and that's just not good for you because you're taking your body through a lot of stress. and there's an increased inflammation, and then that's a whole another thing. So I always say you got to structure the way you fast. Maybe for some people, fasting every day is great. Maybe for some people, fasting every other day is good, or even twice a day. Twice a week can be good. Now, women and men cannot be fasting the same way because men usually just have two main hormones, and women, we have different hormones every week in a cycle, in our menstrual cycle. So it's very important again to feed your hormones for every week, and then fast also for those hormones. I definitely recommend women to not fast 5 days before their periods and couple of days before their ovulation time, and which is why it's very important for every woman to track their cycle.
True, that's true. And that's what a lot of women face an issue with fasting. That, I did intermittent fasting. It did work for me for the first week. I felt amazing for a month
Yeah,
or so also. And then after that, it's not working the same way. And that's true.
yeah,
Like we need to really fast very differently than how, men can rather do. So that's something that
yeah,
it's a great insight that women can definitely work on research and obviously work with someone who knows better about it. And just
yes,
one last point about training that we were discussing earlier. So we all know, we've heard about fasted cardio, its benefits, and how should we go about it, and all of those things. But would you do you also strength train when you are in your fasting phase, or do you prefer
yes.
doing it like after you've broken your fast?
No, I think I'm a fan of strength training just at the last few hours of my fasting hours, especially the 24 hours. If I feel like I have the energy for it, in the last few hours, there's a surge of energy. Plus, there's also increase in growth hormones. So that growth hormone is very important for a lot of things. So I like to push it, but then again, I really do not recommend that for everyone. You need to have a lot of experience with fasting, and you also need to have a mentor who's training you or guiding you through all these fasting periods. Then, with some sort of professional help, then you can push all these things. But definitely, I have tried all of these things, and I actually like lifting at the last few hours of my fasting time.
Right. And that's what I think I've recently also read somewhere, that the real magic happens in the last few hours of, your fasting, and when you're just about to break it. And a lot of times people find it difficult to, like they end up breaking the fast like just 2 3 hours before their set time. And actually, if we
Yeah,
obviously not immediately, but when we are more used to it, when we feel like we really can push it, the last 2 3 hours
yeah,
can make the difference. And
yeah.
a lot of people, when they start fasting, they if they have had an early dinner and something like that, is it normal to feel hungry at midnight, or like is that a signal of them doing something wrong about it?
Yes and no. It is very normal or common to feel hungry middle of the night. Firstly, why are you up middle of the night? That's what I would ask them, because they should be sleeping. Again, it's all about respecting the circadian rhythm or circadian biology. And if you're up in the night, you will feel hungry. But uh, if you're doing something wrong, it depends on what was your last meal before you got into the fasting window. I highly recommend eating something really satiating, which is protein rich and a lot of vegetables and some limited carbs, not too much, because carbs obviously spike your insulin up and then they bring it down as fast as they can. But protein and vegetables and fats, they're not going to do that. That's something that's again very important in fasting. Your body learns how to tap into the fats when it needs and glucose when it needs. This is called metabolic flexibility, and not a lot of us have that. We are so used to feeding on carbs all the time. We only know how to use glucose for our energy. But then when you start fasting and when you know how much carbs you need or what time of the day you need carbs and what time of the day you should be controlling those and increasing your fats, people are really scared of increasing fats too. Fats are not bad for you. So it's very important for us to include, good fats into our every meal. So when your body knows how to tap into different energy sources, it's healthier. It's metabolically flexible. So that is why, again, just knowing how to do these things and knowing when to eat what and pushing or how you get into the fasting window, how much should you be eating is also very important. And I wouldn't say it's going wrong. It's just that it's a sign that you've probably not had enough calories coming from protein and vegetables and fats. That's probably why they're feeling hungry in the middle of the night.
Right. And also, I think there's this transition period from you going, doing a change from what the way of your eating earlier and then transitioning to fasting. I think it will also take a few days, like 4 to 5 days, like you said, to get used to that.
Yes,
And, it might just be a signal of your body that it is adjusting to it. And you might just need to
yes,
give it a little bit more time. Of course,
yeah.
monitoring your last meal, and that also is an important aspect, though, along with it.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
Another important thing is we're all used to feeding our bodies at certain times, right? Like maybe somebody also is feeding in the middle of the night when they're up because you get hungry, you get bored, and you want to eat. So every time the body knows food is coming, it starts to produce something called ghrelin or leptin, the hunger hormone. So when ghrelin is produced, those are the gastric juices, then you are going to, it knows your body is such a magical machine. It knows there's also a biological clock inside our bodies that knows what's going to happen at what period of the time. So when when you give your body the food, your digestive system starts to prepare itself for the food that's coming. And when you don't give it, then the hunger hormone just, starts to react. So that is why, again, like, if you feed yourself enough, you can be okay. Or you've got to break that habit. Your body is used to something and it's very new to you. So you gotta stay, or you gotta push a little bit and push beyond that limit, and you'll get used to it.
Absolutely. That was really insightful. And lastly, are there any myths that you've, always come across through your clients or anyone asking you on Instagram when you talk about fasting? Are there some
Yeah.
particular myths that you'd like to address and bust today about fasting?
Yeah, I've actually made some notes so I can tell you that. So the myths are that there's only one way to fast. If you have water, then it's not fasting. If you have fat, then it's not fasting. If you have coffee, then it's not fasting. That's not right. It depends on everybody's goals. It depends on what you're looking for, and you can modify your fast according to that. Uh, Now, there's another one is that it's only for weight loss. I mentioned so many other things way beyond weight loss. And so you can use it for that. Whether it's weight loss or weight gain, you can actually modify it. A lot of men actually get scared that they feel like they're going to lose muscles. But fasting actually can help them, because remember, I mentioned something called growth hormone. That growth hormone is very important for anybody who's looking for muscle building. But it really depends on how much calories or how many calories you're eating in your eating window. If you eat, or if you go into a caloric deficit with fasting, then you're going to lose weight. If you do caloric surplus with fasting, it actually really plays like a catalyst and speeds up your muscle building mechanisms as well. Another one is that you need to fast every day. I really feel like everyone needs to vary their fasting hours, and the number of days also should be varied. Otherwise, like I mentioned, your body goes into a stress mode if it feels like it's too much for it. Next one is definitely women should fast way different than men. For men, it's just pretty straightforward. For women, it's not. So definitely get in touch with somebody who knows about what happens in a menstrual cycle, and what should you be feeding at every stage, and what should you focus on when you're fasting for these hormones. So yeah, these are the things that I really recommend, or like, these are the myths that I feel like people don't know about fasting.
Amazing. I think that does definitely answer the frequently asked questions that you might be getting, and anybody who might have in terms of fasting when it comes to their mind. So that was
Yeah.
really insightful. And as we conclude our episode, are there any last messages, thoughts that you'd like to leave us with?
Just be open-minded to trying different things. So many experiments and so many different things that I have tried has led me to where I am right now in terms of knowing things about nutrition, and I know it's always going to be evolving. And something that you said that was really lovely, being intuitive or eating or doing things intuitively and not just jumping on the bandwagon just because somebody else is doing something that's working for them. So always be open to experimenting and trying things on your own and then making it your own. There's so many different research that comes out all the time, and something that people don't know, and this is me coming from the health and wellness background. There's research, and I also come from a research background. There's research for everything. If there's
True.
one point research arguing about one thing, there's another group that is going to argue about the same thing in an opposing way. So we need to, I'm not saying both are wrong or one person is right. You just have to read about all of these things and then take all the good things from each and experiment it on your own and try it and then see what actually works for you. What actually works for me might not work for you. So, it's good to just take everything with a pinch of salt.
Absolutely. And that's a very interesting point that I have discussed with so many other guests that I've recorded with, that today, anything you go and search for, you will find research to back it up. Whether
Yes.
it is the good side of it or bad side of it or neutral side of it, everything you'll have, it'll
Yeah.
be backed by research. And that creates so much confusion and, about nutrition particularly. So
Yes.
that's really important. And of course, this is not a medical advice. This is a great way for you to also, getting to know of what these new amazing ways to approach your health and wellness are right now. And to,
Yeah.
of course, this is just a nudge for you to go and research and talk to experts yourself. And at many
Yeah.
times you might even go to a doctor, and something that a doctor said also might not work with you. So that's
Yeah.
also when you will have to change those things. So like you rightly said, intuitively eating and intuitively making these decisions is a major part of it. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for today and for your time.
Thank
It was
you.
really insightful and with so
I
much
hope
detail.
so.
I'm sure that's going to help a lot of our listeners. So thank you
I
for
hope
being
so
here on our
too.
show today.
Thank you, Sakshi, for having me. And it was really lovely having these, chats about fasting and so much more. And these are some really good questions, and I really appreciate it.
Amazing. And for the ones who'd like to reach out to Shweta, you can find the details in description below. Definitely reach out her work, like train with her online, or just see what amazing animal flow workshops she's having in India next, and go for them or train online with her. And there's some really amazing insights on her Instagram page itself. So you'll really learn something new every day. And I personally have been loving the exercises that you have been including and showing up recently.
Oh,
That's really not something I've seen anywhere. Like literally, it's like something
thank you.
very new and interesting, and it really compels me to start including that in my practice as well. So thank you for
Thank you
sharing
so
that
much.
with
I
us.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope it helps others as well.
Absolutely. That's it for today's episode. I am Sakshi Pawar, and I'll be your host for the Settle or Be Better podcast. So stay tuned while we bring more inspiring stories your way. You know the drill. Subscribe to the Settle or Be Better podcast, like, share, and comment on our videos. And oh, hit the bell icon, because you don't want to miss the mind boggling health discussions we're about to bring for you. Why settle when you can be better?